I want to welcome everyone. Um, I wanted to introduce Mr. Logan Lamech. He is the author of Lingering Poets. This is our first interview. I read some of his book, and the title does not totally go with
It
it
throws a lot of
totally
people off.
surprised me.
I
Totally
like to
surprised
compare it to, I don't
Well,
know if you're familiar with the movie True Romance, but yeah,
right.
right, it has a very different title than the content.
Exactly, but that was a good thing, like I told you.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about you initially, and then we'll get into the book.
Well, I think like many parents, we start to find ourselves by our children. So that's the first thing I usually say about myself is I'm a dad of 7 sons
Oh,
that
wow.
yeah, stay home with and homeschool. So that pretty much occupies all my time and
Oh, definitely.
thought process. So when you can escape a little bit for some private time, then that's when you write what you can.
But that's a good thing. You have
Yes.
sons. They're
Yeah.
all boys.
Yeah.
That's
All
that's
boys.
what I prayed for. All boys. I didn't.
Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted. Everyone keeps assuming we were trying for that girl. Nope, we were
Right.
just pushing our luck. We kept hoping, boy, boy,
Right.
boy. And that's what we got. We're suited to raise boys.
Right.
We got
Bless
nieces that
you.
we can,
Bless you
have
for
temporarily.
7.
Yeah,
So
lucky 7.
tell me a little bit about, well, you can tell the people about the book, about Lingering Poets, and then I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about how the title came about.
Okay. So Lingering Poets is about Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
He's a character that is down on his luck and
Mm-hmm.
depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And something just kind of comes out of nowhere to spark his intrigue, and
Right.
it's kind of the first domino in him sort of getting his life back on track and
Right.
realizing that a lot of his problems are kind of to some degree self-induced.
Right.
Bad things happen, but it's largely about how you decide to respond to them.
Exactly.
As to whether you're going to stay in that funk or work your way out.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course there's some crime elements and such as far as what he's going to try and do to get out of there or out of
Right.
the bad situation he's in. As far as a heist situation or robbery. As far as the title goes, it actually, I just kind of had the title "A Mailman" in my head for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
just as kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
placeholder, knowing that's
Right.
probably not what I would go with. But basically, letting the story grow on its own and become what it naturally wanted to be. And then when I got closer to the end, I was going to try and come up with a title.
Right.
And it really didn't take long because I think. There's the criminals, and then there's Samuel, and
Right.
all these different characters. I think the common thread between them is that maybe they're a little too emotional, or not even too emotional, but maybe let emotion guide their decisions more so
Right.
than the average person is supposed to do nowadays.
Right. Right.
And whether that's right or wrong, it was very defining to all of these characters, whether we're talking about the hoodlums or we're talking about our protagonist.
Right. Right.
It's basically what defined them. So
Mm-hmm.
lingering poets, lingering around in a society that doesn't necessarily embrace a poetic nature.
Right. Right. Okay. So tell me, is there elements of Logan inside of this book? Did you pull from
Oh,
your own
definitely.
experience? Is this total fiction? Is this,
The grand story is total fiction. It's not like that, what happened
Right.
to Samuel actually
Right.
happened to me. But, there's a lot of anecdotes, whether it was, a fight at a party or, some ruffian behavior that he shouldn't have been a part of,
Right.
or petty theft here and there. Unfortunately, a lot of those stories are having too much to drink one night. Things like that are all
Right.
anecdotes that did come from real life.
Okay.
And, their experience is what you observed. Many of the observations of some of the characters, that he's looking at and watching
Right.
and thinking about were things that I were observing from day to day.
Right.
Whether it just be sitting in a restaurant or having a cocktail.
Well, I appreciate you. You're my second male figure writer,
Okay.
and I want to get your perspective of your writing. How did you get into the writing aspect? How did you think about, okay, I'm going to write a book?
It's been something I've did pretty much from day one. It's
Okay.
what my dad always assumed I was going to be. Even when I
Oh,
was a kid.
okay. Okay.
He actually, I don't recommend this, but he kind of baited me as even in elementary school, that if you wrote a successful book, you wouldn't necessarily have to go to school so much. And so I think that really locked me on. Like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
but it was just always a hobby. I think he felt that way because of my just descriptive nature, the way,
Right.
long-winded even as a child, and really wanted to
Right.
include all the details and the build-up, and it just came real naturally. And so even in the first grade, I remember taking in, it was a piece of notebook paper, but I had filled up the whole thing. And I don't know if you remember in grade school how big the lines are. So I would
Yes.
show it to the kids that I'd filled up all the little lines, the
Right.
whole paper. And they were like, oh my gosh. So the
Right,
teacher actually had to read the story to the class. And so it was about my pet rabbit having ninja skills and being in a household battle against my pet dog.
Right.
So as far as what got me into writing, it just has always been part of the lifestyle.
Okay.
Hobby or profession, it's just something I always did.
So is Lingering Poets your first book, or have you written other books?
I guess I would have to call it my first completed book. I have a real tendency to work on a project, and then so you know what, this isn't vibing for me right now, or maybe I need to come back to it in a while. And so I have unfinished projects out there that I'm sure I'm still going to finish some way.
Right.
At least that's what I tell myself. But as far as actually getting it all the way to completion and getting it published and stuff, yes, Lingering Poets is my first finished project.
So when did this book officially come out? When did you first? When was this published?
I guess. The ball's only been rolling for probably since this past summer, but I think I got it up on Amazon a while ago. It might have been 2017 that I got it.
Oh, okay.
I just, so novice to all of this that I didn't know what to do with it. And I didn't actually, to me, it felt like it'd been 6 months. And then I'm like, wow, it's been a couple of years and I still marketed or did anything. And also, the whole complexion of the game is so foreign. I went through this a little bit like 20 years ago, trying to see into publishing and stuff. And it was just a whole different ballgame back then. I mean, back then it was hard to find information, whereas now it's like hard to sift through all the information.
Exactly.
And so I guess I kept getting overwhelmed and kind of sitting down, stepping back, and then start doing things with the kids. The next thing you know, it's been a few weeks.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it officially went up in 17, but people have only been reading it for about 6 months now.
Right. So in your process of writing this book, what has been your most interesting aspect? When you tell people about the book, or people see it, or they've read it, what's the most interesting or fun thing you've once you completed the project?
That's a good question. I have not interacted all that much with people who have read it. Like my family's only known, again, not even probably 6 months, about like my extended family, obviously my husband,
right.
But like cousins and stuff like that. And so there hasn't been a whole lot of interaction. However, discovering the writing community, actually where I found you on Twitter, that's been great. Never knowing that was out there. But that whole writing community, the way we do the writers lifts, and people asking questions, and then you meet other people that want to read your book, and then you'll read theirs, and then we can compare back and forth. That's
right. Exactly. Well, that's great. What have you found anything challenging or difficult, as once you come, or even in the writing process, or even after you've completed it? What's been a challenging, difficult thing?
Probably a couple of good answers to that. What I'd say, the first thing that comes to mind, to me, it's important when you're writing to kind of like shut the world out. Like I don't want other people's opinions swaying what I'm putting down. So as an example, if I want to, make a romantic scene, I don't want to picture my guy friends, nudging me like, oh, really? Is that
right?
It undermines what you're trying to do, and you're not being true to yourself. So the entire writing process, I'm always trying to keep everyone else out. And so then when you get done and people start asking you, well, who are you marketing to, or who are the best speakers? That's like such an opposite or polar opposite to where I've been this whole time. I find that very difficult to even think about. And also another example would be that, the character Samuel goes through a lot of depression, and that just really kind of came out naturally. I didn't even have that much focus on it. And then I hear
Right.
other people talk about it and they're like, well, it's a book about a guy with some suicidal impulses. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, that was just kind of, like a background thing. It wasn't
Right.
a
Right.
piece of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what they're seeing versus what I'm putting down, finding that common ground has been difficult. But as far
Oh,
as
good. Okay.
the writing process goes, the editing, I would have never believed there was going to be so many errors. If you've never done, I mean, obviously you've done it, so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But no
Trust
matter
me.
how good you think you are at grammar and all that, there are going to be
Oh,
hordes. It's like
yes.
an endless pool.
Yes.
No matter how many you find, there's a few more out there.
Yes.
So as far as the mechanics of it, I would say the grammar and the typos was what was shocking.
So now we'll kind of get it a little bit in the mechanics of everything. Is there a particular program that you use for writing?
I've always just, I noticed that you'd asked that question, or it was something you'd asked, and no, I've just always used Microsoft Word. So
Okay.
I don't know, is there something you'd recommend? Is there something better
Well,
should
you know what, and I did a video last night just really talking about things to think about for a beginning writer. Like for me, of course, most everybody I'm a pantser and I have a little bit of outline as well, but I typically write out everything first and then I transfer it over to Word. But I have found, I mean, if you want to invest in it as well, I use Pro Writing Aid, which is kind of like an editing tool. But also Fictionary, which is a part of the Pro Writing Aid. I think it's under the Storyteller family. But Fictionary, what it does, because my current novel that's in the editing process, what it does is you load it up into Fictionary. It's an internet process. And you don't have to download it onto your computer. You just upload your manuscript and it breaks it down for you by scenes.
Nice.
Now you can move you can move whatever you need to move or add scenes to it or delete scenes or move stuff around.
Right.
But what it does give me is that it gives me those elements of, like, say, sound or taste or visual, or what's your opening hook for that scene, or what's your ending hook for that scene.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, there's so many. Yeah, there's so many out there. I mean, I know a lot of Mac users, they do use Scrivener. So there's a lot out there, but I came upon Pro Writing Aid first, which is similar to Grammarly, but it's a little bit more advanced, I believe.
Well, no wonder I had so many typos and issues. There's all these tools out here I'm not using. I should have talked to you sooner.
Trust me, even with those,
right?
Because because I mean, even with those, they're not 100%. So even with someone, taking your finished manuscript and editing it, you're still going to have those things, but it gives you those extra elements to say, oh, I'm missing this in this particular scene.
Right.
So it keeps you in the mind frame of, okay, scene by scene, it kind of breaks it down, which helps in that editing, that self-editing process for you as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you could check them out. Pro Writing Aid, Scrivener. There's a whole lot out there. Yeah. So I mean, and there's free ones as well that you don't necessarily have to pay for.
A lot of money.
But that's why I started this, because I want to help the beginning writer not have to go through what I did. Okay, what am I supposed to use? I mean, Microsoft Word has its own, editing portion is spell check, all of that, grammar, punctuation things, but it doesn't go into the deep in regards to
like what you're talking
like
about.
grammar or sentence length or overuse of adverbs or overuse of pronouns or so it goes into all of those added that kind of helps with your self-editing portion before you send it off to a professional editor. So check them out whenever you have a chance. So who has been your greatest supporter in your writing endeavors?
Oh, for sure, my wife. She's
Oh,
she's my
great.
extra backbone here. You know, supporting everything I've done and do, and it's pulled me through a lot. So, and it was actually her that actually decided to have it professionally edited. You know,
Oh,
something
good,
I
good.
could never wrap my head around. I can't
Oh,
take
wow. See?
because the funds involved in that. You know, that's money that, you know, we could be using for the family for this and that. And she's like, no,
Right, right.
we're gonna go ahead and finally do this.
Right,
And
right.
then
I
that's what
mean, but
finally got the ball
sometimes you
rolling.
do. You have to invest in yourself,
You
especially, I
do.
mean, I still work a full-time job, but I love to write. That's what I love to do.
Right.
Whether I'm great at it or not, that remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, everybody's
But
for certain people's tastes, you know.
right, exactly.
There's everybody for
So
somebody.
right. So thank your wife, for
I think.
um I think that is it. Do you plan on writing anything else? Do you plan on publishing your other works and working on your other books?
Oh, eventually, yeah, it definitely.
Eventually, okay.
Yeah, not
Okay.
nothing that's just around the corner or anything like that. But yeah, I'm by no means done.
Right,
I've
good,
got a long
good.
journey ahead of me here.
Well, thank you, Logan. Say your last name correctly.
Lamech, no, you said it right. I was
Lamech.
going to
Oh,
compliment on that.
great,
Yeah.
great.
Extra biblical there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you for
I know
having me. I
you
really
had to,
appreciate doing it.
know.
Yeah, it took a while for me to be like, okay, because when I
that's
agreed,
fine. That's
I thought it was a
fine.
written thing. I had just saw
No,
a written one. So when you asked, I just had a written one in my head, and I'm like, yeah,
right,
sure, I can do
right.
that. And then I'm like, whoa, I'm going on camera. That's a little
There's
different.
actually going to be both. So,
Right.
because
Okay.
initially when I started, it was just a written blog. So because that's how I got this idea and started it, because I was able to go to kind of like a business expo, and they had writers and authors, and so I was introduced to one of the people at the Wave newspaper that's here in Los Angeles, and she wrote up a piece on my book. It didn't cost me anything. It didn't, it didn't.
Now you
I
decided
didn't
to pay
have
it
to
forward.
pay for it. I just had to, just answer the questions about the book. She did a little
Yeah,
write
that's
up,
awesome.
and that is really what my heart is. That's what God wants me to do. I want to pay it forward for anybody that is willing to come on and be a part. So
Well, that's awesome. And you made it real easy for me too. So anybody watching, if you're having second thoughts, definitely do it because she makes it easy.
oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. So go out. I will have his information in the description below. Go out and buy Mr. Logan Lamech's book, Lingering Poets. Thank you again, Logan.
Thank you so much.
All right.